Hi, welcome to my shop again. Well, today we're going to do a Christmas ornament, and I'm going to do it maybe a little different than what you've seen in the past. I'm going to do the top and the finial backwards, so I'll have access to it, and I'm going to hollow it out with my hollowing system, my big hollowing system. Why? Because of the laser, so you'll see all that in action. So stay tuned. I am doing also a little promotion here. I'm doing live interactive remote demonstrations over the internet. Don't have to be a member of a club. You just purchase a seat to my demo right from the comfort and safety of your own home and grab a glass of wine and about 2.5 hours live and interactive. I welcome and encourage participation, so asking questions and comments and everything because it's live. So see my website for details. Okay, let's get started. I've got a piece of cherry burl here with lots of character, color, and as I always do, started between centers and started to rough it out. I had significant voids and stuff. I wanted to try to find a way to get something round out of this for a Christmas ornament. So got it roughed out and put it on my glue block, as I always do with CA glue. And so now we're starting to make the shape of the globe of the Christmas ornament. Grain orientation is not as much of an issue with the burl, so I'm making my cuts this way so that it's forcing, the forces are going into the lathe rather than pushing this way, which is wanting to vibrate, so the forces are being absorbed by the lathe here. I could just end right there. That could be a Christmas ornament, couldn't it? Now I want to refine this line, get a nice rounded shape here, a continuous arc. Bevel support is going to direct me in the direction I'm going. I'm swinging my handle so I make a curved line. Okay, now that's starting to be a nice arc, so I'm going to shear scrape this and get it cleaned up. Handle way down. Can't see in the picture there, but the handle is way down on my thigh. And I'm making little tiny angel hair shavings. To refine the line gently with small cuts. I don't need to take big cuts now. Got a bump right here, so I come on the other side. Because this is a burl, the grain is not going to be as much of an issue again as straight grain wood is. So I can go either way. Alright, now I've got it all nice and shaped, sanded down to 600 grit. Nice and finished, and we're going to drill a hole down part way with a 1.125" Forstner bit, and I see got a crayon line in here how deep I'm going to go, so I leave myself a good maybe 1/4 inch in the bottom here. I can hollow that out later, but I don't want to drill too deep. Notice I've got a Jacob's chuck with a Forstner bit, and if you'll see here, I've got a pin in here that I drilled a hole through there and put a pin in. So now when I'm drilling and I try to pull that out, the Jacob's chuck's not going to pull out of the Morse taper. As long as the shavings are flying out, I'm good shape. It's not heating up too much. Once I get in there a little bit, I want to get the shavings out. And go down to my red line. Now I've got a 5/8 inch drill. I'm going to put a 5/8 in here. And now this, I'm going to drill all the way through into my waste wood. So I can go a little more than 2 inches here. So I can go about here with that. Okay, let's hollow this out. You wouldn't think I'd use a big hollowing system for this little thing, but because of the laser that I have for my wall measurement, I can make this thin, a Christmas ornament hanging on a Christmas tree. Can't have a heavy thing or it's going to weight it down, so I want it nice and light. So I'm going to use my boring bar system. That's the backrest. Boring bar on. Have a safety pin in here so that the back handle can't come out of there. And it's all captured and safe. My system's set up correctly. Can't get a catch. Never get grabby or aggressive. All of the height adjustment is the lathe tool rest to get me on the center line or slightly above, never cut below center. The laser that's attached to the boring bar is going to give me sight in there instead of working blind. I'll be able to see where we're at, and I'm going to use a card here to set a gap. The gap between my laser and the cutter is going to be my little caliper. That gap has to be 90 degrees to the wall, just like any other caliper when we're measuring. And so I'm going to use this card to do this, and I'm going to set it up. The long line is the area we're going to work in the top. We're going to set the laser on the arrow line, which is 90 degrees to the area that I'm going to be working there. And I'm going to set a gap there. So we'll move the laser now over here. And I'm going to make it nice and thin, about 1/8 of an inch thick. Okay. Now we go hollow. Let me hog off some of the middle wood first. The laser's just a dot on it. I can see where I'm at in there. All right, so now let's start to measure that wall. The laser gets elongated like that. That shows me I'm getting close to my wall thickness. I'm going to pull it towards my tummy now. Make the laser disappear and stop. Make the laser disappear. Stop. 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 But what I do want is uniform. But I can just use my fingertips now, clean up the tool marks, get it nice and clean in there. Get a little bit further in. All right, so now we set the laser here for the first quadrant, and the gap was 90 degrees through the wall. It's all about the gap. So now we're going to set that gap again here at the largest diameter, and the gap now is going to be 90 degrees through the wall. And then we're going to set it a third time down in the bottom. We're going to bring the card around here and make the gap 90 degrees through the wall when we get in the bottom. So I'm going to set the laser 3 times here. All right, so now the laser's over here, right? That's in the wrong place for that area at the largest diameter, so we move it over here. Just takes a second to move it. And we'll go back in the hole, and now we're going to measure right at the largest diameter. Okay, laser disappears. That means I stop and the gap is left behind. I'm going to transition in from the top down into the sidewall. Let's get down in here in the bottom. Measure a little bit deeper. Right in there. Okay. Now, because of the swivel assembly, I was up and under that shoulder, could reach that real easy. Now we're going to move the swivel assembly to get down in the bottom here. Since I'm working in a different place of the vessel and I move the swivel assembly, look at where the laser is now. It's way off in a bad place. So now I'm going to put it back over here so I can measure that bottom third and make it nice, about 1/8 of an inch. So now I'm going to go into that center hole for a second and get rid of some of that waste wood. Now I want that laser to disappear again. There's where I left off before. Let the laser disappear. Okay, so now that's all measured. I'm going to go back with my fingertips, clean up the tool marks, transition it into the other stage. Well, we're done hollowing the sidewall. Now we're going to see where our depth needs to be inside the waste wood here. So we're going to reset the laser now. With no line and no gap, we're going to set it right at the tip. No gap this time, because I'm working where the waste territory is, the waste wood behind. I don't have a wall to measure with. And this is how deep I am. I know exactly how deep I am. Well, I want to go a little bit deeper. When I take this arc down to finish that, the outside of my globe is probably going to be about here. So I want to take that down, probably another 1/8 of an inch or so, a little bit deeper. So I've got a hole now going all the way through, right? I've got a hole down in here. There's my depth so far. I want to go deeper than that. See how deep I started, how deep I am now. Just takes a few cuts, really easy with just my fingertips. So now let's just radius that in to the side. A little bump there. You can watch the laser, watch the shape through the waste wood in the bottom. All right, and we're done hollowing. Now remember, I've got a hole all the way through here that's 5/8 of an inch. I'm going to set the caliper now at 1 1/8 inches. That'll leave me a cylinder of wood in here strong enough to finish a little bit more of this bottom and to finish sanding and clean this up. And that 1 1/8 is the same as my mouth opening here, and a cap. The cap's going to cover up the area on the inside there that I won't be able to sand while it's on the lathe. I'll sand it a little bit off the lathe to get it clean, but okay, now that wall thickness gives me enough strength that I can finish this area here. I got the diameter that I need for my parting tool. I don't want to go any deeper than that. Go back to shear scraping, refine the line. Got a little bump there and get the little bump off. Now I have it shaped and sanded, and so I can part it off. I've got a thin kerf parting tool, put a brand new burr on that so it's very sharp, because parting tool is going to rip it up a little bit, but that's down underneath the cap anyway. But we can part it off. Make that parting tool follow the rounded shape again. Get right in that corner. Swing my hand a little bit so I make a rounded shape as I part that off. And flat across the bottom. And then I'm going to hit the hole. Okay. Okay, got her all done now and polished up. If you notice, I did this with a glue block and not a chuck. I don't use chucks because of their weaknesses, their limits. This would be something that would be probably successfully done with a chuck, but I don't use them, so I wanted to show the methods that I use without a chuck. And I choose not to deal with those weaknesses and chose not to use a chuck. While I'm doing my finial, another place that a chuck would work, but I want to show you how I hold the finial, and I'm actually going to do the finial backwards, upside down to what most people do, and you'll see my reasoning on that in a few minutes here. This is an end grain glue block because I want to glue on the inside surface, and I've made a recess in here to fit the tenon that I made for my finial, and goes in there. Most important part of this, I want the glue right in the corner so it seats against here, and it also has the gluing capacity of side grain here against the side grain of the recess. I'm going to put the glue on here, and then I can put the accelerator on the glue block. So this is thick glue, put it all the way around on the tenon and on the shoulder, so that'll ooze on out of there. A lot of accelerator. And now you can see how that oozed out there. Spray a little more accelerator on that glue that's oozing out. Now I got to give it like 2 minutes to 3 minutes to cure. Okay, I've got it glued up, and I'm using my tailstock for support. As long as this is, about 6 inches long, this wood would flex and vibrate. So the reason I'm going to do this backwards to what some people do, I'm going to have the tenon of my top here so that I can use the tailstock. If I had the tenon down here and had the point up here, I couldn't use the tailstock. It would be too fragile and crush it. So I'm going to do my cap first. I'm going to prepare this with a 5/8 inch hole to prepare my cap and make a cap first. Then I'll part that off, and then I'll make the finial. I'm going to use a parting tool to get the size of the tenon. Okay. Going to use a spindle gouge now because it has a steeper angle and the wings aren't in my way. That undercut shoulder fit against the globe. Okay, what's the matter with this picture? I've got a little bit of reveal there. You can see it. Between the two, I want that to shoulder right up against here so that I have a nice transition between the two. And so this roundedness here means I have to make more of a recess in there to let it shoulder correctly. Now we nailed it. It's right up against there, so there's no gap anymore. Downhill to the fibers, always go from large diameter to small. Using the bowl gouge to get rid of the mass of the wood. So what do I want to do with this transition? I think I'm going to angle it in just a little bit, just to give it a little interest right here. And then let's just round this over. Using the spindle gouge now. All right, another advantage that I have while I'm working it upside down here, it's important to match the shape here. This territory right here compared to this. And so that doesn't match. It's tapering out too fast, isn't it? So I have to tuck that in, and I want to make it a little bit smaller, a little bit thinner right here to just the aesthetics, the compatibility between the two elements. They need to work together, not fight each other. I'm really liking this, that we can fine-tune this all before we part it off. So I'm going to just take this in just a little bit right here, make this a little more rounded right here. Okay. All right, so now that roundedness should match. So what do I want to do with the, I'm going to put a little knob on here that will hold my eyelet. Something like that. All right, now my spindle gouge isn't steep enough angle to make the detail I want in there. I want to make a nice crisp separation between this lid part and the knob. So I'm going to use a skew because it has a steeper angle to it, and I can get right up in there. So I'm going to use the toe end of the skew and clean that up, get right down in there, make a little V cut in there, one side, then the other side, back to the other side. Now it doesn't get much cleaner of a cut than that, and if you see the detail now in that corner is much crisper. All right, let's use a skew again out here to part it off with. I could use a parting tool. In fact, I might use a parting tool. but I can't shape too well with a parting tool without having to sand all the damage. So better if I use a skew, which is slicing through the fibers cleaner. I kind of like that, a little dome on there. Let's take the tailstock right off, and we'll end up so now I've got just a little tiny nub there to finish off with sanding, and now I've got my cap. See how it fits, how it transitions between the two. Okay, with the skew and the steep angles, very little sanding needs to be done here. Need to use the larger end on the finial and make a tenon for that. Measure it first. Measure my tenon here. And get ready to shape my finial. Large diameter to small. Get rid of some of the wood. Let's go back to my spindle gouge. So let's get rid of a little bit of this meat here behind, and I'm going to round this in just a little bit. Right in here is where it needs to come in. Okay, so I'm going to leave a little detail right there, a little sharp corner right there, and let's proceed forward. Okay, my first detail is about 1 inch. Second detail I want to do about 1.25 inches. Something about here. The third detail then is about 1.5 inches. Gives me a little bit to part it off. So each one of these is going to be a little bit longer than each other and a little bit smaller. Okay, you can see now that I'm not Cindy Drozda, and Cindy is the guru for finials. She's the expert that I've learned a lot from, and really appreciate the detail and the technical things she does. But doing this backwards, which is upside down to what she does, I'm not doing any fine details. I'm not going to make a long, slender finial here like she does, because for me, this is a Christmas ornament, and it's going to hang on a tree. It's going to get stored away in a box, and I don't want it to get broken, so I'm going to leave these elements pretty big. This is maybe just a fat quarter of an inch, and each one is going to be a little bit smaller as we go along, but not to the point where it's going to break. And doing it backwards so that I can mate these surfaces and get the compatibility of the globe versus the finial here that I wanted, so I like to do it upside down. By doing it upside down, I have the tailstock, and if I was to do a really thin, long, skinny finial, a 1/16 of an inch long like Cindy does, well, then I couldn't use my tailstock because I would crush it. So we're doing two different things here, apples and oranges again, that I'm going to just keep this simple and make these little droplets, whatever you call these designs, and finish this off so that until the very end I'm going to be able to use the tailstock. I don't have a lot of pressure here. I'm just holding it to keep it from vibrating. So let's get rid of some of this wood. So now we're coming with a new camera angle from the behind the lathe a little bit so that you can see I'm on top of the piece with that planing cut, and how the flute now is going to roll over to make that cut just like a skew would be. Get up on the tip a little bit here. So using a bowl gouge instead of a skew, both doing the same kind of work. Small straight edge of some. I want to go from the diameter here to here to here to be on a plane with each other. Getting the detail right in that corner. I want the diameter here, the smallest element, and then this is a little bit smaller than that, and then that's smaller than this is, so that each one progresses into smaller and kind of mate each other or are compatible with one another. Okay, here I'm going to use the planing cut with the bowl gouge again, but the heel starts to almost touch the waste wood there, so I switch to a spindle gouge so I can get up into that corner. Here to make this just a little bit smaller diameter. Now I can take this all the way up to the edge. See, what's leading me is the bevel support there. The bevel support is directing me right down there so I can make a nice flowing taper. Okay, we got her done. Put a little finish on it so that you can see it against my shirt here. There we go. So stay tuned for the next one on YouTube, and remember, I'm doing the live remotes, the IRDs, and if you're a club member and want me to do a demonstration for your club, have your club program chair, give me a buzz. The finial's about 4.5 inches. The height of the globe is about 2.5, almost 3 inches in diameter. So we'll see you next time.